Periodically, I will receive messages on Facebook with questions regarding how to run a martial arts studio, how to grow it. So I figured I'd try something where I'll take these questions and I'll just answer them on video. So the first one is, why did you decide to open your school in Kansas? This is an interesting question. The answer is really simple, because I was born here and I didn't even think about moving anywhere else. Looking back, I probably would have preferred to move somewhere bigger. The Kansas City market's not small, but maybe Dallas, Texas. But God always has a plan, so I'm here for a reason. So there was nothing behind me starting Coma in Kansas other than this is where I'm from, this is where I was born in Kansas City, and this is where I grew up. The next is, when you first started, what was the first marketing technique you used to bring people in the door? I had to laugh at this question because, first off, I was barely 23 years old, just out of college. I graduated KU, and I'll never forget, after the studio opened, no students. It's like you anticipate that first day, and then you're officially open, but no students. The marketing back then, which was 20 years ago, was much different than it is now. So back then, think about things like Yellow Pages, newspaper, Valpak, money mailer, which is all paper, right? Back then, the internet was not as prevalent as it is today. Not a lot of people, or at least there were smarter people than me that maybe were doing digital ads, but that wasn't me. And again, I was just out of school. I was barely 23 years old. I didn't know what I was doing. So my marketing strategy was literally those paper things that I just said. Maybe even handing out flyers, but I don't think I did that either. It was just a lot of luck and God's grace. And it was a lot of referrals. My focus was to teach the absolute best classes and provide the best experience possible, so then these people would refer friends, which is what happened. I ended up getting, I think, 100 students in 7 months, which I was so grateful for. But to answer your question, marketing back then was so different. Now, maybe the question's more like this. What would I do today if I was starting today? Well, that's a whole nother story. First and foremost, you have to ask yourself, where are your customers? Where are your leads? And more importantly, where are your ideal customers? So if you have a martial arts business, a martial arts studio, school, whatever you want to call it, this is not an internet business. Our market is within, I would argue, 4 miles, if not 3 miles around a studio. So you just look on a map, put a pin down of your studio where it's going to be, draw a 3 mile radius circle around that studio. That's where your people are. The next question is, how do you get in front of them? How do you make sure they know you exist? And even more importantly, how do you make sure that you can solve their problem? First off, 80% of moms are on Facebook, so you have to get on Facebook ads. Google is every day going more and more towards, you got to pay for attention, which is Google PPC, pay per click, because if you search something on top, I think it's now Gemini, it's AI, and then underneath is going to be Google Ads. And then after that is Google Maps, and after that is going to be everything else, SEO. But by that time, you're like 3/4 down the page. If not, you don't even see it. So you have to first get heavily into digital marketing. If you don't know how to do this, then I highly suggest hiring a company like I did to do it for me, because that is not my forte. That is not what I want to do, nor is it that I really understand yet. Now, I have a much better understanding now, but if I was starting out brand new, then I probably would hire it out. Now, if you don't have the money, then you're just going to have to get on YouTube and teach yourself. So you got to get to a point where people can find you, which is through the internet, which then goes into the next thing, which is making sure that you have a website that converts. What does that mean? It's optimized for people to, for us, is schedule that first lesson, which is at no charge for them. And ultimately, we want to capture their information. First name, last name, or even just their name, but most importantly, their email and their phone, email and phone. Because then you can follow up, you can send them content. The other ideas are going to be establish relationships with schools in the area. Where are these kids? In school. So if you can get in good graces with the school around you, that's going to be a good thing. But for us personally, it is very difficult for us to get in the schools. And also, I've taught in schools many times, but I've never been able to crack the code of how do I teach them, and then second, get them to enroll after I teach them. Yes, you can have the school send out flyers, but what if they lose them? And then ultimately with schools, the school experience, the environment is so different than if they came to your studio. So for us, we try to really provide a premium experience. Can you do that in a school? No. It's stinky and it's a school. But when they come into our facility, it smells good, it's very premium, it's very well thought out. So I want that child, and especially the parent, to come into our studio and have that as their first impression, and not just me going out to the public school and then cross my fingers. Now, there are many people out there who can do this. I have yet to crack the code. Maybe it's just me. Who knows? One more thing would be, honestly, direct mail. The mailboxes are a lot empty than they were before because everything's on the internet. So then maybe purchasing a list of all the houses around you with a certain income. Do they have kids? And that information is definitely out there, and you can purchase those lists, and then you send them some sort of mailing, have a QR code, have them scan it so you can track it, and then try to go from there. The other one is doing like birthday parties and scout workshops, because then you get all these people in and you get their email. But ultimately, the goal here is getting your name out as much as possible through internet, social media, etc. You can do paper, you can do flyers, you can do old school methods, but the first thing is get your name out, and second is get contact info so then you can follow up with them, whether you do that manually or automated. But either way, it's just really a numbers game at this point. Got to get those leads to convert them to students. The next question is, can you explain your membership in your school? How much do you charge? How many times a week can they come and exercise? Do you offer any special membership options such as leadership or competition team pricing? This is a really big question, so I'll do my best to not make it a long answer. First, can you explain your membership in your school? All of our new students will enroll in what we call our fundamentals program, which is our basic program. Every quarter, we will send out an invitation in the mail, handwritten, to join Black Belt Club. And then after that, once they join Black Belt Club, then we'll have them invited into performance and then mentorship. And then eventually we want them in leadership, which means they're 14 and older. And we hire them. We actually pay them as a paid employee. They get a paycheck. They're on our payroll. So just going backwards, the fundamentals is going to be our most basic curriculum. The Black Belt Club is like the intermediate curriculum, and then performance and up is our most advanced curriculum. And we did this because we don't want to have students partake in an advanced curriculum until they choose they want that. Because a lot of times these kids, especially the ones that we get, are not ready to learn Shipjin or choreo. Even Taeguk, Paljung, or Chiljung is extremely, which are forms, complex. They're not easy to do. So whenever they're ready for that, then they can move up to the next program. How do they get qualified? The first is they have to have enough attendance. If they don't have enough attendance, then why would we invite them into another program where they're not even coming to class? And then second is, are they following the rules? Because we don't want to fill our Black Belt Club class, which is a higher level program, with students who are not ready for it in the realm of behavior. So if they're not behaving, why would we put them in a higher level program? It's going to negatively affect the experience of the students in that class who want to be there and they're following the rules. And then with performance and mentorship, it really goes back to the attendance, but also, are they giving their best? These are the groups of students who really want to be here, they're giving their best, and we can push them to that next level. And the next question is probably the most popular, which is how much do you charge? It depends, but it generally starts around $240, $260 per month, depending on how they pay. If they pay in full or they pay ahead, it actually drops a lot. So it really is following a principle, which is the more commitment you make, the less you pay. It's a really simple principle that anybody can understand. So if you pay for, we actually have them enroll in belts, which are 13-week cycles. So if they pay for one belt, which is 13 weeks, then they're going to pay the most. But if they pay for 12 belts, it is substantially less, but overall the cost is higher. And then when they move up to Black Belt Club, if they get invited, then it's more like $300, and then performance and mentorship starts to go up closer to $400 per month. Our fundamentals program, the basic one, is 2 times a week, and then Black Belt Club and up is going to be 3 times a week. Performance and mentorship is unlimited. Do you offer any special membership options such as leadership and competition team? So I talked about that. Leadership is going to be our staff. People are on payroll who are actually teaching classes, and they actually will work at the front desk too. The competition team pricing doesn't exist because I don't do competition team. I did that about 8 years ago and realized that I was spending almost all my time and energy on 5%, if that, of our student population, which is not fair to the 95%. It was expensive, and I just lost passion for it because, again, it was only for the 5%. We focused on Pumze, but even if we did sparring, I still wouldn't do it because, well, how does that benefit the studio? I think the myth or the idea that if you have a champion, you have an Olympian student, then all of a sudden you're going to attract all these people. Maybe, but that's a tiny little market. So for us in Kansas City, I don't see the market. It's not there. And it's just not something we're passionate about. We actually want the kids who are not athletic, who struggle with sports, who are more academic. They are more intellectual. Those are our people, and they're not going to be competing in sparring or even Pumze. So we don't even offer it. The next question, what software do you use for your school? Example is Kicksite. Funny story, I would say it's been 17 years ago, around that time. My brother and I actually created Kicksite, and then we ended up selling it to Jason Neef. I love that guy. He has just done amazing things with Kicksite. I cannot believe it. We would not have been able to do what he's done with Kicksite. That being said, we don't use it, and it's nothing against Jason and Kicksite. It's just, it didn't fit with what we wanted at the time. We wanted something a little different. So I landed on Zen Planner. I've considered switching over to Kicksite, but it is missing one feature, which is being able to reserve classes ahead of time. They haven't added that yet. So as soon as they do, then I definitely would consider switching over from Zen Planner. Zen Planner is not great. And to be honest, none of them are really that great. Maybe in the future, we will create our own because we are going to be franchising our brand. So we'll have hopefully more locations, then we can customize it because there's definitely things that I want to see in the software and would love to create our own. Next question, do you have a local martial arts supplier or do you order from out of state? So we have Century, which is in Oklahoma, which is one state south, but we actually get most of our equipment from Best Martial Arts. I've known James Kim for a long time, and he's a good guy, and I've always used them. They're in California, and I think there's nobody better, especially when things go wrong. He'll get it fixed immediately, and we just have a good relationship, and I like their product. How do you find your designer and contractor for your school? I found somebody local to design it, and then as well as contractor for the school, the newest studio at least. So we actually have 2 standalone buildings. One of them's 8,000 square feet, the other one's 5,000 square feet, and then the most recent location is a leased space. The first 2 I own, and then the third one is a leased space, 2,400 square feet, even though the rent is astronomically high because the area that I chose to be in. But for that one, the contractor was actually the landlord, which is probably going to be common, but I decided to use them because they seemed like they were very honest, and they actually were throughout the whole process. They did a good job. So that's how I found them. But it's easy to find these people. Just look on the internet and start asking around. Next question. What staffing or hiring tips do you have for attracting and retaining qualified instructors? I wish I had the answer to this because this is not easy. This is very difficult. So with staffing, a lot of my staff have been with me 15, 16, 17 years. And I've been very blessed to still have them. But that's the first thing is I just try to take care of my people, and I've just been lucky. I've been lucky that some of my instructors have stuck around even through all the COVID times and maybe me switching things around all the time. But overall, I do have to say culture is everything. The culture of a business is what is going to attract or not attract good people. And second, it will help retain good people. One of the things that is so important for a leader is to serve their team. It is not the other way around. The team is not there to serve the leader is there to serve the team, which means you have to build a relationship with them, which means that you have to pay them fairly. I try to make sure I pay them at least 20% over what the average is for our area. My goal is that I am paying my top leaders $100,000 or more. That is my dream, but I would love for all of them to make as much money as possible so they can live a comfortable life. But to answer your question, you got to take care of them, because if you don't, they're going to leave and go somewhere else. I think in the Taekwondo studio industry, it is common to see these instructors get paid minimum wage and then get worked like dogs. How can you expect them to stay? How can you expect for more people to come if they are not getting taken care of? But you can use sites like Indeed or I think maybe Facebook, but in reality, it is very rare to find an instructor from a different studio that's going to fit your culture. I know I've found a couple that have stayed with us for a while. I have one who's our instruction manager. He actually moved here from Virginia, and he's been amazing. So it can happen, but overall, it is not easy to recruit instructors. So it really goes back to trying to find them either through your students or parents. Hopefully you found that helpful. The only advice that I would offer to anybody new who's wanting to start their own martial arts studio and find success in it is to read as much as you can. Be a sponge. I wish I started reading books a lot earlier. I didn't start until I was 30, probably some ADD going on there, and I started listening to books. That's what changed my whole mindset. Books like E-Myth, they're on my wall here. There's so many of them. Have an open mind, be a sponge, and learn from those who've already done it and those who are experts. Don't try to do it all on your own. Why reinvent the wheel when it's already been invented? Learn from them. That's how I've done it, at least. So hopefully you found that helpful. Reach out if you have any other questions. Thank you.